I knew something was wrong the moment I saw Marcus's face when I opened the bank statement. It was a Tuesday morning in our Atlanta suburb, the kind of perfect spring day where everything looks exactly like it should. Tyler was eating cereal at the kitchen island, milk dripping down his chin. Zoe was humming that Disney song she'd been practicing for weeks, the one she wanted to sing at Magic Kingdom, our Magic Kingdom trip. The trip Marcus had promised them 3 months ago with that big smile of his, the one that made our kids believe anything was possible. The statement showed a balance of $3,000, our joint account, the one that had held over $103,000 last week. My hands didn't shake. That's the thing I remember most. My hands were perfectly still as I looked at that number, then at Marcus across the kitchen, then back at the paper. He was scrolling through his phone, his jaw tight in that way it gets when he's hoping I won't notice something. "How long were you going to wait before telling me?" I asked. My voice came out flat, almost curious. Tyler looked up from his cereal. Zoe stopped humming. Marcus set down his phone with exaggerated slowness, like I was the one being unreasonable. "It's an investment," he said, "for the startup. Thompson and the team found an opportunity we couldn't pass on. You wouldn't understand the tech sector dynamics. The startup, his precious tech venture that was always 6 months away from making us rich. The same startup he'd been pouring money into for 2 years while I stretched every dollar at the grocery store. An investment?" I repeated. $100,000. Zoe's little voice cut through the tension. "Daddy, is Magic Kingdom still happening? You promised." I watched Marcus's face, really watched it, the way his eyes shifted to the left, the slight tightening around his mouth. I'd been married to this man for 10 years, and I was watching him prepare to break our children's hearts. "We'll reschedule, Princess," he said. "Daddy has an important business trip first. Dubai. Very important meetings. Dubai." The word hung in the air like smoke. Tyler's spoon clattered into his bowl. "You promised?" he said, and his voice cracked in that way that made him sound younger than 8. "You said this summer. You promised." Marcus stood up, already reaching for his jacket. "This is exactly why I handle the finances. You don't see the big picture. This Dubai deal could set us up for life." I said nothing. I just stood there holding that bank statement while our son's eyes filled with tears and our daughter's bottom lip started to tremble. The doorbell rang. Marcus grabbed his keys. "That's my Uber. We'll talk about this later." But I was already walking to the door, that statement still in my hand. Through the glass panel, I could see Marcus's mother, Diane, standing on our porch with her designer purse and her practiced smile. She swept in before I could say anything. "Marcus, darling, are you ready? We need to make sure you have everything for Dubai. Such an exciting opportunity. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She knew. His mother knew about the money, knew about Dubai, probably knew about it all before I did. Diane turned to me with that smile that never reached her eyes. "You understand, don't you, dear? Sometimes we have to support our husband's ambitions. That's what marriage is about. Sacrifice." Behind me, I could hear Zoe crying now, asking Tyler why they couldn't go to Disney World. I could hear my son trying to explain something he didn't understand himself, his voice thick with disappointment. Marcus kissed the kids goodbye without meeting my eyes. "I'll bring you both something special from Dubai," he said. I stood in the doorway and watched him load his luggage into his mother's Mercedes, watched them drive away, watched until the car disappeared around the corner of our perfect suburban street with its perfect lawns and perfect lies. Then I closed the door and walked to the kitchen. I picked up Marcus's coffee mug, the one he'd left on the counter with a ring of liquid still at the bottom. I carried it to the sink and washed it carefully, methodically. The water ran hot over my hands. Tyler appeared beside me. "Mom, are we really not going to Disney?" I dried my hands on the towel, dried each finger separately. When I looked at my son's face, wet with tears he was trying to hide, something inside me went very quiet and very cold. "Not yet, baby," I said. "But we will. I promise you that." What I didn't tell him was that I'd already started calculating, that I'd noticed the security camera light on our doorbell was green, which meant it was recording, that I'd seen the look Marcus and his mother exchanged, the kind of look that comes with secrets kept and stories coordinated. What I didn't tell anyone was that I was done being the woman who didn't understand, the woman who just sacrificed, the woman who stayed silent. I was done with all of that, but they wouldn't know it yet. Not Marcus, not his mother, not anyone. They'd see what they expected to see. A wife who'd learned her place, who'd swallowed her disappointment, who'd moved on. Let them think that. Let them think they'd won. I had already started planning how they'd lose everything. The first thing I did was smile. Marcus came home from Dubai 3 days later with duty-free chocolates for the kids, and a silk scarf I never asked for. He set them on the kitchen counter like offerings, waiting for me to react, waiting for the fight he'd prepared his defenses for. I picked up the scarf, felt the fabric between my fingers. "It's lovely," I said. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer with the other things I'd never wear. His confusion was almost satisfying. That night, I made his favorite dinner: herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables, the works. I set the table like I always did, called the kids down, served everyone their plates. Marcus kept glancing at me across the table, trying to read something in my face. "How was Dubai?" I asked. My voice was pleasant, neutral, good, productive. The meetings went well. I nodded, cut my salmon into precise pieces, chewed slowly. "Aren't you going to ask about the investment?" I took a sip of water, set the glass down exactly where it had been. "Should I?" He actually laughed, nervous and relieved. "I thought you'd be upset." I looked at him then, really looked at him. Let my eyes stay on his face just long enough to see him shift in his seat. Then I turned to Zoe. "How was school today, baby?" That was week 1. Week 2, I moved into the guest bedroom. Didn't announce it, didn't explain it. Just gathered my pillow one night while Marcus was brushing his teeth and walked down the hall. He found me there an hour later, standing in the doorway with that confused look again. "What are you doing?" "The mattress is firmer here, better for my back." "Since when do you have back problems?" I turned off the lamp. "Since now." He stood there for a long moment. I could feel him trying to decide if this was worth a fight. Finally, he closed the door. His footsteps faded down the hall. In the darkness, I opened my laptop. The screen glow lit up pages of financial documents I'd downloaded from our accounts. Every transaction for the past 3 years. I'd started organizing them in spreadsheets, the way I used to do at the bank before I married Marcus, before he convinced me I'd be happier at home with the kids. Funny how those skills came back so easily. By week 3, I'd made 4 appointments. The divorce attorney's office was in Buckhead, all glass and steel and women in sharp suits. Catherine Chen didn't waste time with pleasantries. She listened to my story, asked pointed questions, and then slid a business card across her desk. "You need this investigator," she said, "and this forensic accountant. Trust me." I trusted her. The investigator's report arrived on a Wednesday. I read it in my car, parked in the grocery store lot where I'd told Marcus I was shopping. Dubai wasn't just business meetings. There were photos. Marcus and a woman named Jennifer from his startup team. Hotel lobbies, restaurants, their hands too close across candle-lit tables. I sat there for 20 minutes staring at those photos, waiting to feel something. Rage, maybe. Heartbreak. But all I felt was that same cold clarity that had been growing since I watched him drive away with his mother. I deleted the text he'd sent asking me to pick up his dry cleaning. The forensic accountant found something better than an affair. She found my name on loan documents I'd never signed. Marcus had forged my signature to secure business loans for the startup. $60,000 of debt in my name, my credit score, my liability, my financial future he'd gambled away. That night, I made dinner again. Chicken parmesan this time. Marcus was on his phone at the table, barely eating. The kids were doing homework in the living room. "I need you to sign something," he said, sliding a paper toward me. "Just a formality for the startup. Tax stuff." I picked up the document, read every word while he fidgeted with his fork. It was another loan application, another $100,000 he wanted to borrow using our house as collateral. I set it down, picked up my water glass, took a long drink. "Well, I'll think about it," I said. His jaw tightened. "This is time sensitive. The opportunity won't wait." I started clearing the plates. "Then I guess you'll have to wait and see." That weekend, his mother came over, unannounced, like always. She found me in the garden, pulling weeds. Her shadow fell across the flower bed. "Marcus says you're being difficult." I didn't look up, just kept pulling weeds. Dropped them in the bucket beside me. "He's trying to build something for this family. The least you could do is support him." I sat back on my heels. My hands were covered in dirt, my knees pressed into the soil. I looked up at Diane with her perfect makeup and her judgment, and I smiled. "You're right," I said. "I should be more supportive." She blinked, uncertain. "Excuse me," I said, standing up. "I have to make a phone call." I walked past her into the house, went straight to the guest bedroom and closed the door. Then I called the number from the investigator's report, the one for Jennifer's husband, who apparently didn't know about Dubai either. "Hello," I said when he answered. "My name is Clara. I think we need to talk about our spouses." That night, Marcus noticed the lawyer's business card I'd left on the counter, left it there on purpose, face up where he couldn't miss it. He picked it up, read the name, looked at me. "What's this?" I was loading the dishwasher. "Just someone I'm talking to." "About what?" I closed the dishwasher door, hit the start button. The water began to rush. "Financial planning," I said, making sure I understand everything. For the first time since he'd come back from Dubai, I saw something other than confusion in his eyes. I saw fear. Good, I thought. Be afraid. Because what Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd found something else, hidden in my grandmother's old paperwork, stored in boxes I'd never bothered to open. A commercial property deed in Savannah. 4,000 square feet of retail space in the historic district that my grandmother had left me years ago. Property I'd completely forgotten about. Property worth over $250,000. But I wasn't ready to tell anyone that yet. Not Marcus, not his mother, not even my lawyer. Let them think I was just the wife who didn't understand. The woman who was finally trying to learn about finances. The one who'd stay silent and eventually give in. I had 5 more weeks of silence planned. 5 more weeks of watching and waiting and gathering every piece of evidence I needed. And then I was going to burn their whole world down. Week 6 began with a phone call I'd been waiting for. The property appraiser's voice was professional, almost bored. "Mrs. Harrison, based on the current market analysis of historic Savannah commercial real estate, we're valuing your grandmother's property at $280,000. We have 3 interested buyers." I was sitting in my car outside Tyler's soccer practice. Through the windshield, I could see Marcus on the sideline, phone pressed to his ear, probably talking to Thompson about their dying startup. He had no idea what was coming. "Accept the highest offer," I told the appraiser. "I want to close within 2 weeks." That same afternoon, I walked into Catherine Chen's office with a folder thick enough to end a marriage. Bank statements, loan documents with forged signatures, the investigator's report, recorded conversations where Marcus admitted to taking the money, photos from Dubai, credit card statements showing purchases I'd never approved. Catherine spread them across her conference table like playing cards. "This is airtight," she said. "Financial fraud, identity theft, misappropriation of marital funds. We can freeze all joint accounts immediately and file for emergency asset protection." "Do it," I said. The legal papers were served to Marcus at his office. "I know because Jennifer's husband called me that same day. They served mine at the startup," he said. His voice was shaking. "Everyone saw. The whole team knows now." "Good," I said. "They should know." That evening, Marcus came home like a storm. He slammed the door so hard that Zoe jumped. The kids were at my sister's house. I'd made sure of that. "What the hell did you do?" I was sitting on the couch, laptop open. I didn't look up. Filed for divorce. Protected my assets. The things you should have thought about before you stole from our children. Stole? I invested in our future. I closed the laptop. Looked at him for the first time. "You forged my signature on loan documents. That's called fraud, Marcus. And the district attorney agrees with me." His face went white. "You went to the DA?" I stood up, smoothed my shirt. "Actually, Jennifer's husband went to the DA. I just provided supporting evidence. Turns out when you ruin multiple families, people talk. You vindictive..." I held up my hand. "Save it for your lawyer. Mine says you'll be lucky to avoid jail time." The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I posted on LinkedIn. Not a long post. Just honest. After 10 years of marriage, I'm rebuilding my life and my financial literacy. To anyone who's ever felt excluded from household finances or had their signature forged on documents they never saw, you're not alone, you're not stupid, and there are legal protections. Educate yourself. Protect yourself. Your financial security matters. It got 40,000 views in 3 days. Women started messaging me, sharing their stories, asking for advice. Some of them were colleagues from my old banking job, people I hadn't spoken to in years. One of them offered me a consulting position. If you're watching this and you've experienced financial betrayal or seen the warning signs, you're not alone. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories of financial recovery and empowerment. Like this video if you believe in second chances and financial independence. Comment below with your own experience or what gave you the courage to leave. And share this story because someone in your life might need to hear it today. Your story matters. Your freedom matters. The property sale closed on a Wednesday. $280,000 deposited into an account Marcus didn't know existed. That same week, Catherine filed the final divorce petition. The evidence was overwhelming. The judge granted me emergency custody, froze all marital assets, and ordered Marcus to pay temporary support. His startup collapsed the following Monday. Turns out investors don't like funding companies run by men under investigation for fraud. Thompson called me, begging me to drop the charges. For the business, he said. For everyone's jobs. I hung up without answering. The real court date was set for early June. I walked into that courtroom in a navy suit I'd bought with my own money. Marcus was already there with his lawyer, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His mother sat behind him, her designer purse clutched in her lap like a shield. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. She read through the evidence in silence, reviewed the forensic accountant's report, studied the forged signatures. Finally, she looked up. "Financial abuse is abuse, period," she said. "Mr. Harrison, you didn't just betray your wife's trust. You committed fraud. You used her identity to secure loans. You depleted marital funds without consent." She looked at me then. "Mrs. Harrison, I'm granting you full custody, 70% of all remaining marital assets, and ordering Mr. Harrison to pay restitution for the funds he misappropriated." Marcus stood up. "Your Honor, please. I have children to think about." The judge's expression didn't change. "You should have thought about them before you spent their college fund on a luxury trip with your mistress. Sit down." I walked out of that courtroom with everything I needed. Legal custody, financial restitution, and something Marcus never gave me in 10 years of marriage, my dignity back. That weekend, I took Tyler and Zoe to the airport. We had 3 weeks ahead of us. Disney World first, then London, Paris, and Rome. I'd booked everything with my settlement money and the property sale. First-class tickets, nice hotels. The trip Marcus had promised them and never delivered. At the gate, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Please, can we talk? I made mistakes. The kids need their father. We can fix this." I read it while Tyler excitedly showed Zoe pictures of Cinderella's castle on his tablet. Then I deleted the message, blocked the number. Zoe tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, is Daddy coming?" I knelt down to her level, looked into those innocent eyes that still believed in happy endings. "No, baby, but we don't need him to have the best adventure of our lives." And we didn't. They called our flight. I took both my children's hands and walked toward the gate, toward Disney World and Europe and every promise I was going to keep. Behind me, Marcus's world was burning. Ahead of me, mine was just beginning. 6 months after the divorce, I stood in front of my third fitness studio location and watched them install the sign, Elevate Wellness Studios. My name was on the lease. My vision was in every detail, from the eucalyptus-scented towels to the floor-to-ceiling windows that let natural light pour across the yoga mats. The instructor I'd hired was teaching a class inside, and through the glass, I could see 20 women moving through sun salutations, 20 women who'd paid premium prices to be there. My phone buzzed. The accountant's monthly report, $52,000 in revenue across all 3 locations. After expenses, I was clearing $38,000 a month, more than Marcus ever brought home from his precious startup. I forwarded the report to my business partner in Miami. The wellness spa we'd opened together was already breaking even. "Give it 3 more months," she'd said, "and we'll be looking at expansion." Tyler ran up to me, his new private school backpack bouncing against his shoulders. "Mom, can we get ice cream? Please?" Behind him, Zoe was showing her friend the charm bracelet I'd bought her in Paris. Real gold. Because I could afford real things now. Because every dollar I spent was money I'd earned myself. "Of course, baby," I said. "Let's go." We walked down the Buckhead Street, past boutiques I used to window shop at, into the gelato place where I no longer checked prices before ordering. The afternoon sun caught the windows of my townhouse 2 blocks away. 3 bedrooms, a rooftop terrace, and a mortgage I paid on time every month. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I got dressed for the networking event. Black dress, simple but expensive. The kind of expensive you can only spot if you know. Heels that made me feel powerful. Hair and makeup done by professionals. Because I'd learned that investing in yourself wasn't vanity. It was strategy. The Four Seasons rooftop was exactly what Atlanta Power looked like. String lights wrapped around the perimeter, the city skyline glittering like scattered diamonds below. Women in their 40s and 50s moved through the space with the easy confidence of people who'd built empires. Tech founders, real estate investors. A federal judge I recognized from the news. These were my people now. I took a glass of champagne from a passing server and moved toward the railing. The view stretched for miles. Somewhere out there was the suburban house I'd lived in with Marcus, the kitchen where I'd discovered the missing $100,000, the guest bedroom where I'd planned his downfall. I didn't miss any of it. Clara Harrison? I turned. The woman extending her hand was Simone Fletcher, owner of 5 boutique hotels across the Southeast. I'd researched everyone at this event before coming. "Simone," I said, shaking her hand, "I've been hoping to meet you. I heard about your fitness studios. Smart franchise model, even smarter exit from a bad marriage. Word traveled fast in these circles. We talked about expansion opportunities. She mentioned a property in Charleston that might work for a 4th location. Gave me her card, told me to call her next week. Real business, real connections, the kind Marcus used to make while excluding me from the conversation. My phone vibrated in my clutch. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Marcus's new phone. The message was long. I could see the first line in the preview. "Clara, please. I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk? I've been in therapy. I've changed. I made mistakes." I stood there on that rooftop, champagne in one hand, phone in the other, and I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who would have read every word of that text, who would have considered it, agonized over it, maybe even responded. That woman was gone. I deleted the message without reading the rest, blocked the number, slipped my phone back into my clutch. Simone was introducing me to someone else now, a venture capitalist interested in women-owned wellness brands. She wanted to talk about scaling my business model nationally. Real money, real opportunity. "Everything you okay?" Simone asked, noticing my brief distraction. "Perfect," I said, "just clearing out something I don't need anymore." The venture capitalist laughed. "I know that feeling. Nothing better than deleting dead weight." We raised our glasses. "To women who rebuild," Simone said. "To financial freedom," the venture capitalist added. I looked at both of them, then out at the Atlanta skyline. "To knowing your worth," I said. We drank, and the champagne tasted like victory. Later, when the event was winding down, I stood alone at the railing one more time. My Uber was waiting downstairs, ready to take me home to my sleeping children in our townhouse. Tomorrow, I had meetings about the Charleston property. Next week, a consultation with my investment advisor about diversifying my portfolio. I thought about Marcus somewhere in this same city, probably in a cramped apartment, probably still wondering how he lost everything, how the wife who didn't understand finances had dismantled his world with the precision of a surgeon. The truth was simple. He'd taught me what I was worth by showing me what I wasn't willing to accept anymore. Losing $100,000 had cost me a marriage, but it bought me something infinitely more valuable: my freedom, my power, my future. I'd built an empire from his betrayal, not just a business empire, though the studios were thriving and the spa was growing, but an empire of self-respect, of financial literacy, of knowing that I never needed him to succeed. I needed him to fail so I could rise. My phone buzzed again, not Marcus this time. A message from my real estate agent, the commercial property I'd been eyeing in Midtown, another investment, another piece of the portfolio I was building. I smiled and typed back, "Make the offer." Then I picked up my clutch, straightened my shoulders, and walked toward the elevator. The doors opened, and I stepped inside, watched them close on that chapter of my life. Behind those doors was everything Marcus had taken from me. Ahead was everything I'd taken back, and I was never, ever looking behind again.